Hi, everybody. Welcome to La Lista, a LatinX writers podcast. I'm your host, Ruben Mendive. Today, we have a brand new guest here via Zoom. So I start every episode with asking my guests to introduce themselves. So your name and how you identify for the people at home.
My name is Chris Carmona. Hello, everyone. And I'm a Southeast Los Angeles Brown creative. That's my fancy title, but I really just make music. I host a podcast, and I'm first and foremost a filmmaker. That's like my number one passion.
So my follow-up is always, where are you from? And whatever that means to you. So what's the short version? What's the long version?
Yeah, so Southeast Los Angeles, as I mentioned, is a part of LA that's like predominantly brown. There are also Middle Eastern homies and a few black friends here as well. But I love it. I grew up here. And it's a special part of LA to me because I feel like there isn't really much like it. There are other places that are similar, but they kind of have, like, you can kind of argue, I guess, that like maybe the South Bay or like Hawthorne is kind of similar. I'm like, but y'all got like a fucking airport and the beach. Like, it's not the same, you know, or whatever. You guys are just really closer to like cooler shit, you know, like there's not really much around. We have a movie theater and stuff, and we have a famous street called La Pacific in Highland Park where it's just a bunch of stores, but growing up here, I always felt a little ashamed of it in the beginning because it didn't feel like anything special. I'm like, why don't I live in fucking Burbank or something? You know, I don't know, where the fucking famous people come from, you know? But it wasn't until after high school that I just learned that we had a name, because I didn't even realize we had a name. But once, because you hear about East LA, so I used to say, oh yeah, I'm from East LA. But even that didn't feel right. I was like, I don't know if I could claim that. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm from East LA. But when I heard it was South East LA, I was like, that sounds tight. I want to own that, you know? I'm like, I never had a real place to rep. And now that I know a name, I love saying it. SELA.
You're actually the person that introduced me to SELA. I feel like
Oh, cool.
Well, I'm not from here, so I'm just like, everything sort of just runs together for me. But
right, yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of what happens. And that's why a fellow homie of mine, Angel, also my podcast host on the S podcast, we noticed that, you know, like it kind of gets... And I don't look at it in a very negative way that we get overlooked. It's just LA's a big place. So, you know, like you have to, there's got to be like, for me, like, I'm like, what's happening here? What's popping in SELA that everyone's making such a big deal about? It's like, well, first of all, we're here, we're doing this dope shit. And there's tons of other artists that are going to be doing dope shit once they see more who's doing dope shit. Because the thing that always frustrated us about where we come from is that there's always been talent here. I mean, I think there's talent everywhere. I think it's just a human thing. We're gifted. But in here in particular, it was sad to just see a bunch of mega talented, like brown homies that you grew up like thinking like, oh, they're going to become something, you know, because you're young. You don't know the sad realities of life just yet, you know? Yeah. And then when you leave high school and you just see that like nothing really happens and you're grinding and you're fucking struggling and you're suffering and people are either going ahead of you or people have given up, you lose people along the way and you're just like, fuck, dude, like it just feels like I'm all alone on this. But I think overall, the biggest thing about our community is that we needed people to start really doing it before us. And there have been people that have been doing it before me and Angel, obviously, that are like the SELA guardians, you know? That's why I have like, we call ourselves the SELA kings and shit. But then when we're around the OGs, we're just like, you know, like, oh, sorry. We don't mean to step on your toes. Because we know they've been grinding and trying to put our names on the map for way fucking longer. But I'm like, I feel like we're just the first ones that are making it cooler, you know, a little swagged out, a little chill, you know, like, yeah, we're Latino, but it's all good. We're not, you know, it's not vato and essays every fucking other sentence, you know. We're just chilling, we're vibing. We like the Strokes. I like the Strokes too, man. Bruno Mars, that's my boy. Like, we're regular, you know. That's why I'm like, no one really addresses that. And usually, like, whenever East LA is portrayed, it's the vato stuff or the lowrider thing. Lately, it's been toning down thanks to like shows like Hentified, which is cool. But even they poke fun at it. It's like yeah, like we should step away from that for a little while. Again, not to denounce. I always say this when I talk about this topic. It's not to say that I don't think that those cultures don't exist or don't have a relevancy in the mainstream. It's like, but that's first of all, we've been getting that flavor for a very long time, and we just want to see other styles. That's it. Yeah. It's just as simple as that. Like, there can be room for those, but at the moment, like, let's just try to think a little bit outside of the box from what we don't know. Let's go beyond.
And so I always like to get a sense of like family history. So like, what's your like parent story?
My dad, I guess we'll start with, he's from El Salvador. He grew up there during the war, when the war was going on, like in the 70s. So when he was like 5, he was living with his grandmother. His grandma sends him to Mexico City. So he grew up in Mexico all his life with his mom and his stepdad, who was the Carmona that we inherited that name from. So really, I'm not even like, I'm Carmona by like kind of association, which is funny, you know, like weird how shit like that happens. But my dad came to the States, you know, started going to church, met a crazy lady. That was my mom. And, you know, they had me. My mom, love her. She is from Michoacan. I always forget the pueblo. People are like, oh, what's the pueblo? I'm like, fuck, she always tells me, but I straight up forget. And she came here pretty early. My dad got here when he was like 19 or 18. He was very young, and he crossed by himself. It's like a whole crazy story that I'm going to make a movie out of one day. And my mom, she crossed over when she was young, and she grew up religious all her life. So that was a big part of my upbringing. I was raised as a Christian up until I want to say 2009. I was like 14. It was my parents split up, and my mom just like, I don't care. It was like she was just heartbroken, you know. So like me and my brother were like, sick, let's watch Family Guy and The Simpsons now, you know, shit we couldn't watch. Let's watch. That summer we watched every R-rated movie we could think of on like 123 Movies or whatever the site was. You know, we're just like, let's watch this now. Eat pizza, order pizza. Let's watch all these rated R movies while mom's crying at work or something.
So yeah, what was the Carmona household growing up? You know?
It was intense. It was loud, religious, but it was very loving too. I mean, I had a good childhood. My parents were dope enough to just like, I would say so the best thing about my childhood, I mean, even though religion played a huge part in it, and that's like a whole, I still hold it very true to me. I don't consider myself a Christian anymore, but I hold my faith still close to my heart. But what I feel like the big things I took away from my parents, first of all, my mom, I mean, I've been kind of like low-key shitting on her this interview, but she's amazing. Like, she's the person who told me from like when I was 5, like, yeah, you can be she wanted me to be a pastor, right? But then I'd be like, I want to be an artist. Like, of course you can be an artist, you know, like I want to be an author. Of course you can be an author. And I was like, movies, you know, I'm like, of course you can do movies. And she gave me that. People would say it's like being naive a little bit, but like my mom just like gave me the comfort and space to dream. And my dad would try to shut it down sometimes, not in a bad way, like you can't do it, but he'd just be like, think about school, or, you know, like, but he was on that spectrum. My dad is is where I get my work ethic from. Like looking at something being like, I don't like that, I'm gonna do it differently, or I'm gonna do it, I like some things about this, but let me make it more my own, or let me just build it off of memory or whatever. Like my dad does a bunch of cool like construction shit. Like he has his own trucking business. Like he is fucking driven. And I always say, like, if my dad in the 90s wanted to be a filmmaker, he would have made a movie. Like if that was in his blood, he would have done it. But he had other ambitions, and there were other things that were holding him back too. But my mom really gave me the courage to allow myself to see me from very early as 5, that as this world famous filmmaker. She always told me, you're gonna be big, you're gonna be big. Like, and I realized as I grew up, I gave off that vibe to people. So I never understood why people didn't really like me, you know. Back then I just thought, damn, I'm cool, I'm gonna be famous, why is everyone mean to me? You know. But it's because I acted that way, which isn't bad, but I didn't realize it wasn't until I met Angel that I learned that parents isn't always the case that they're your biggest supporters. Sometimes they could be like, you're not really gonna do this, and I'm like, oh, like I see that in movies and shit, you know, like where parents are like disapproving. But that it's different when it's a brown parent and you're low income. I'm like, dude, like I didn't even realize that in my situation, my mom had the gentleness of my brain in her hand, and like she could have easily crushed it, which she did in certain ways, but dream wise and in my life, she could have crushed it and been like, you know, like, you're not going to do this. And that could have fucked with me. I still think I would have had that drive, but I wouldn't probably be as confident, or I wouldn't have this bravado that I was gifted with. So they were just very intense, extreme people. And I get a lot of that from them. But I think especially once they separated and they left and they went away, that's where we really kind of started to become our own people, because we were just so attached to this illusion of this religion. And and not that I don't believe it's real or whatever, but I mean illusion is like you gotta live your life by these laws, and this is the only way you'll have a good afterlife. It's like, why am I gonna fucking have a lame life right now for some afterlife later? It's like, that doesn't make sense anymore. As a kid, it's like, yeah, I want to go to heaven, but later you're like, I'm gonna be here for a while. I kind of want to chill here for a minute, you know?
Because it can sort of go two ways with like immigrant parents, where it's like they know the real, like they know the harsh reality, they know what the world is, they know like what's expected of you and where the ceiling sort of starts, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why they want you to like surpass that, and that involves certain careers and schooling. And then there's like the other sense where it's like they like truly came to a whole different country, started a whole new life, and like there's that other aspect of like you can sort of make like that takes like tenacity to be like, I'm gonna move to a whole new country, don't know the language, don't know anybody, build a life. And it's interesting how that also is passed on to us, that it's like you can sort of make life of like what you want out of it, you know?
We can adapt, you know? And I think that's the coolest thing. Like, like, okay, our form of adapting isn't as extreme as leaving this country and doing a whole nother life, but y'all did that. Like, that was the big sacrifice you made. You're like Jesus, you did it so we don't have to, you know? And I'm like, embrace that. And I can I've expressed before, I understand why it's harder for some parents, but I always just encourage for people to be like, you know, I think parents should people, at least anybody in an older generation, like this goes to even people that are in the industry that are like, I'll say it, old heads, you know, like y'all gotta like open your mind, like listen to the kids, bro. Like Kanye says, like it's true, because sure, like we don't all have the same life experience as you, but there's a reason why we have a burning passion for the things that we want to do or want to create. Like it's in us for a reason, you know, like just like there was that passion in each one of you to like get over here or start that business, you know, take a chance on this company. We have that too. We're all humans. We all have that. You have to trust us. You can't be like, I lived more, therefore I know more if this is going to work out for you or not. It's like, nobody knows, especially in COVID, dude. Batman has COVID, you know, like nobody knows. Nobody knows. And these should be the biggest signs to tell you that life is really just up in the air. We have this idea that it's all under control, and it kind of is for the most part, but take advantage of the fact that like everything's really up in the air and it's up to you. Yeah. There is so much power in knowing that it's all up to you. The friends I have, the people I welcome, it's all up to me. The shit I make, it's all up to me. I own all my characters. I own all my shit. It's mine. It's like, I feel so good. Like, even if I'm not repped, I'm chilling, you know, because I know in the long run, I'm going to be here, you know, for the most part, you know, it might sell a couple things here and there, you know, but for the most part, I'm going to own everything. And that makes me really excited. And I encourage more people to be like, yeah, I want to own everything. Fuck that. Fuck giving 50% of whatever to whatever, whoever, you know? Because when I was reading Rebel Without a Crew by Robert Rodriguez, by the way, this is how I like to carry myself, right? Other people can be different, have different, like, this is how I want to be treated when I'm an artist. Like, we all have like how we want to be revered or talked about. Robert has a good piece of advice where he says, carry yourself that way from the beginning. Have those demands from the very beginning. You can't ease into demands, because otherwise, if you're not like, sure, let's say you carry those demands and Sony turns you down, right? It's like, okay, fine. Warner Brothers, what's up? They're like, okay, I guess that's how you are. We'll take you. Because if people know this is how this is how he, she, or they work, they won't even question it. Once you go on to your next project, be like, hey, they like edit their own things. They make their own posters. They like to be involved with the score. That's how they work. If you don't want them, we can move to somewhere else. And you're like, that's me. I come with all this. You got to come with all your shit already, because you'll get turned down by a few people. But what better way to weed out the whack foos?
Yeah. And, you know, I'm always curious about people during their like teenage high school years, 14 to like 18. Like I sort of frame it in, who were you? Who were you pretending to be? And how did other people see you?
It's funny you bring that question up, because I've been just thinking about a lot of like my childhood, or like my teenage years growing up. And yeah, let's see, 14 to 18 is really where I felt like that was the beginning of me really starting to like be like, okay, because I lost weight. I was always chubbier. I was a chubby kid growing up. I didn't get like fat until I was like probably 15, because that was a year after my parents' divorce. And like I said, my mom stopped giving a shit, and it's not her fault. She was heartbroken, you know, like, but she stopped giving a shit as far as like, like, again, she was still an attentive mom. She obviously took care of us. She kept the house over, but stop giving a shit as like, she wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to cook some cute thing today. Chicken fajitas with, Mickey Mouse stars or what. Like, none of that. It was just like, you want pizza? Do you want Pollo Loco? So we were just eating fucking Domino's and drinking Coke every night. So I got fat, bro. We all got fucking fat. It's kind of why I'm a little mad at my mom, but it's like it's just a joking thing. But during that time, I was trying to fit in. I've always wanted to be a skinny, cute guy, a guy with long hair that listens to rock and roll, and I like movies. So it was just like I just wanted to be. I knew what I put it this way. I knew what I could look like if I had like shed weight, if I had taken better care of myself. But I think as a kid, I just didn't have that sophistication or the patience to be like, wait, I gotta lotion my body after every shower, brush my teeth every day. I did do that, but it was like, like shit like that where you don't really, it's not a priority to take care of yourself because you don't really feel what's holding you back. I knew I was different. I knew I had different aspirations than most kids, but I was trying to fit in. I was this light-skinned kid I have red hair right now, but just black hair, and I don't really look like any of like the guys, like as a kid. And that was I'm glad you bring this up because that used to kind of spark up a little bit of this like inherent racism towards my own people, like growing up. Because I'd be like, why are these fucking dark-skinned kids getting all the bitches? Like I'm fucking light-skinned. People like me are in movies, like what the hell? And it's like that's a bad thing to have in your heart. But it also came from just like I was just a different person, like I didn't look like everybody else and I didn't act like everybody else. And I didn't know then that was still a good thing. That's part of what made me me. Because when you're surrounded by all these kids that are constantly making fun of everything you wear, or like, oh, big head or whatever was the common joke, is like you just feel like, fuck, I suck. So it wasn't until I got hit by a car during summer school when I was like 17, summer 2013 that I always talk about, that's what like things changed for me. I like lost weight. I started doing Insanity. I love that you said 14 to 18 because I would say from 14, 15, 16, I was like miserable. Like I think I was in a relationship probably around that time too, but like with me, I wasn't secure with myself. I'd get jealous. I was like, oh, I'm not good enough, But once I turned 17 and then 18, 17 was when I got hit by the car, and that's when I like drastically transformed. And all of a sudden in my senior year of high school, everyone's treating me so fucking nice, dude. It was like the flip of a coin. Suddenly people are just like being nice to me, like just, oh, hey, Chris. And I'm just like, hello. I'm like, I don't know if it's because we've had 4 years of school together or just because I'm fucking skinnier now, but nobody treated me nicer then. And it was an interesting thing to grapple with. So up until recently, my weight was a very big insecurity in my head, something I thought about. And that was, I like talking about it because I don't really get to talk about that often. And I know people probably see me and they don't think that I ever like struggled with how I looked growing up, but I did. And I still do every now and then too. I think we're all humans, we have our own thing. Even a really handsome guy that I'm friends with, it's like, yeah, we all have things that we don't like about ourselves. I'm like, I guess it's just a human thing, It's all really perspective, as long as we like ourselves, that's all that should really matter because you're a person. So if you think you look good or if you feel good about yourself, chances are other fools will too. You'll attract that energy. I didn't know that then. You can't know that then. They don't teach that in school, but I'm fucking learning about the Pythagorean theorem while I'm crying.
After high school, like, did you have a plan? Did you know sort of what you wanted to do?
I knew I wanted to make movies, but I had no fucking plan, dude. And it's crazy. Oh, this is so cool. I get to tell some of the story. I've never even really talked about this. So I went to a film program called Inner City Filmmakers. I have talked about that, but I remember I was 17 and it was like the school year was ending. People are getting accepted into their colleges. They're getting their letters. Oh my God, I'm going here. And I'm just like, it's either that I got to go to ELAC, do a couple classes, or fucking, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I just remember thinking like, dude, like I really spent my high school years making like stupid videos. Like my dad said, your stupid videos, when I could have been like doing homework or like getting my grades up so I can go to a good college. I'm like, now I'm not going to be a filmmaker. I was like, fuck. I was like, maybe I'm just going to have to, all right. I'm like, I guess I'm just going to put that filmmaking shit on hold for now. And then just try to go to college. I swear I said, like, I remember thinking like, it was a sad day for me. I had a sad lunch. I was just like, I'm really going to give up this film shit, like, just because I have to fucking, do this college bullshit or whatever. And it hadn't hit me until I started seeing everybody getting in, and I'm just like fucking just meek, just standing there like, damn, fuck. But after that lunch, I swear to God, I go into, it was like a economics class. We go into our economics class, and there's a young presenter there, homie by the name of Henry Mendoza, who I know now, which is funny. But this guy Henry was standing in the front of the class, and my teacher, Mr. Salazar, shout out. I remember he pointed at me because everybody knew that I like making movies, right? And they knew I had done videos. So he's like, hey, everybody, before we start, we have a quick guest speaker. He's like, Chris, he's like, you're actually going to want to listen to this. And I was just like, what? And so this guy Henry's talking about, there's this film program called Inner City Filmmakers. You can do it after the summer in high school, but the only qualification is you got to graduate. And I was just like, that's it. I was like, that's my ticket. That's what I'm going to do. I'm like, fuck college. I'm doing that. And so I was like, I just got to graduate. That was a whole nother fucking thing I had to overcome. But it was crazy how like, that was my first lesson in understanding about letting go. And ever since I do that, I do it as a constant practice where I let go of projects. I let go of the album that I put out, the movie, or I let go of expectations. Like you let it go because you hold a resistance when you want something so specific, so close to like how you envisioned it to happen. It's like, yes, that's a nice image, but it was just meant to drive you. You're here now. Let it go. Let it go. Mm-hmm. And that was that first lesson of like, okay, fuck this. I'm not going to do film. And then a fucking opportunity came and slapped me in the face like a fucking movie. And I'm like, God, I know this is a sign. I was like, so I'm taking it. And so ever since then, I did that program, met all my friends, the people I still collab with to this day. That's how Angel and I became aware of each other.
Yeah. And can you sort of talk about your experience with like inner city filmmakers? Just because I know a couple people who have gone through it. So like, what is the program for, just for the audience?
The program is run by Fred Heinrich and Stefania Lipner. And they're these people that they were inspired by the 92 riots, I want to say. And they were just like, we want to open a film program for, underprivileged youth and stuff. So they've been based everywhere. Most recently, or at least when I went, they were in Santa Monica. It was an 8-week intensive program where they just pretty much run you through the whole gamut of like, we're going to have DP classes, director of photography classes, shooting, like learning how to shoot with cameras, learning about aperture and shit like that, grip, learning how to light stuff, directing, obviously, acting. And you run through all these courses, and in the last, I want to say in the last 4 weeks of so it's like the first 2 or 3 weeks you're like learning, but also you're developing a script for a short that you're going to spend the remaining weeks making. And they put you off into groups, into sections of groups of who's closest to each other. And so I was team C. We were all pretty much kind of SELA kids. This is like a SELA table. We all worked on each other's movies. So I was a director for my short, but then one of my homies, like Jose, was a DP or whatever, and this person was that, and we switched roles. Then I had to be the fucking PA for someone else's. So it was a cool program. I did that. I made my short. I guess it's worth mentioning my short won the big prize that year too, which was cool. Helped my confidence and helped my parents believe that like, okay, maybe he doesn't need college. It wasn't until I did the Oscars thing that they were like, all right, he seems like he knows what he's doing.
What did you do after you did that program, because you sort of got like a boot camp and really got to show something from it. So like, where did that take you?
So it was just, that program really just cemented in my mind. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. And I, at least as far as like what I want to do, like, I know that I have some kind of skill in this, like this opportunity wouldn't have literally slapped me in the face, and I wouldn't have won it when I was, this was like one of those things where I was like, I don't expect to win, because I really had to dumb down my script and like I couldn't make it flowery like I wanted to as a young writer, write all these like details, and feelings. And I was like, I'm not going to win. And I did. And so I was like, fuck, okay, so that's good. Like, all my life, I've been running on the momentum of that since then. It's just like, all right, keep the ball rolling. Let's go. So after that, we did a 48-hour program with the same foods at Inner City Filmmakers. I made a short horror film called Fingered. It's on my YouTube. After that, that's when we found out about a thing called Team Oscar 2015. It was the last year they ever did it, but it was an Academy Challenge that Channing Tatum hosted, where he's like, go make a short film, 1 minute, best piece of advice you ever received. Send it over. People did, and I was one of the six winners. Yeah, I got to hang out for a week at the Oscars. So like, it was all surreal because also I found out the news when I was with Inner City Filmmakers on a Sundance trip, visiting Sundance 2015. So seeing kind of all those things, like all these recurring film things happen in my life, like just being these opportunities, just being kind of coming my way where I literally had no path. You know, I was embarrassed and comfortable with the fact that, okay, college is not for me because all my friends are getting accepted and I'm just like sitting here like a duck. And then this thing happens and all of a sudden it just felt like too good, right? So it's all this good shit at once and I'm like, cool, like I'm meant for this. And after that Team Oscar thing, there was a bit of a lull. And when you go from such high highs, you sing all your heroes and then going back to like a Cadillac drop, a nice Cadillac drops you off in your house and, you know, like, all right, get off, you know, like we're going back to Hollywood, you know? It's just like, fuck, take me with you. I want to go back. And I had to really, from that moment on, again, it's about keeping that ball momentum going. I'm like, all right, let's keep pushing the ball. I'm like, all right, for the rest of this year, I'm going to land a couple cool opportunities, hopefully. And I did a couple sketches. I got to work with John Turtletop as an assistant. So that was a lot of fun. But I said, for the rest of 2015, I'm only going to, like, this is the only year I have to talk about Team Oscar. Because next year, I got to be talking about something else. I'm not going to be that guy that was on Team Oscar fucking last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago fucking, and that guy in the memory. I'm like, no, I'm relevant now. So 2016, the next year, that's when I said, we're making a movie. That's when we made the movie. We edited for a year. 2018, it comes out. La Leaf. Like, I'm speeding through these years, but fuck, dude, it felt like forever. It felt like forever to get here. And it feels good to be able to, like, oh, I'm going to speed through these fucking years that I was all suffering through. But it's nice that I knew I couldn't leave a year without achieving something pretty cool or substantial in that time. And especially during 2018, as when, like, we've been the most active since then. Like, the ball is just on fire now.
You sort of like made a bit of a splash because it's like this like 20 something. How old were you? Like 21, where like were you getting all the press for it?
I was 21 when it came out, but 19 when I made it.
This like young person makes this film for like $700 and that's like the headline.
Yeah.
Listen, Chris, I watch a lot of films. I watch a lot of films for this show. I do research. I've been wanting to have you on for like ever, just because it was probably maybe over a year ago where I was like, this dude, Chris Carmona, he's got a film. I was ready for it to be bad. I was so ready.
You should be.
And again, I think I watched it like Saturday at like 2 p.m. Like again, just it's free on YouTube. Like let me just put it on. Mm-hmm. I was like, first of all, blown away.
Hell
Secondly, on the edge of my seat.
Hell yeah, dude.
Like by the end, I'm like, but wait, like I need to know more. Like how to, and I think that's where I was just like, first of all, the audacity, but it also speaks so much to being like young, hungry. How do I make this happen no matter what? You know, my thing was like, I'm going to move to LA from Chicago at like 21. Like I'm going to save all this money to do it. Like that's the big move. And for you, it's like that age range where you can sort of just make whatever you want and you're too dumb to know better. And
yeah, we knew that. That was the beauty of being 19. I'm like, I'm in a sweet spot right now where I'm a kid, half adult man. Right? Be like, can we hang you off a truck? It's for a movie. You know, they're like, okay, kid, we'll do your stupid little movie. And it worked, you know, as I watched that movie again. I'm like, ugh, like I can't even imagine the nightmare dread I'd feel as an adult man being like, what are the real life consequences for if this doesn't go wrong? I'm like, it can't go wrong. I'm doing it, you know? But it was I mean, everything you're saying makes me feel good because even though, not a lot of people maybe know about my movie, what you're saying, first of all, thank you for the beautiful words. The way you say it made you feel, the things you thought, I'm like, that's even the headline. I'm like, it was all, we knew that going in. We knew this is the headline for the movie. Like, this is why I'm like, the budget is 700. I'm not going to go beyond that because like, I want that challenge of like, Robert did it for 7,000. I'm doing it 700 and a better one. Sorry, Robert, you know? And we knew a typical route for a first-time filmmaker, not that no shade, is just for me because I'm like, I'm getting overlooked constantly, right? So the last thing I want to do is do another thing that's going to get me overlooked and do a coming-of-age story right off the bat, right? I'm like, I got to do something big. I'm like, even if it's still small scale, I'm like, there's got to be a scene in this movie that's like, this movie is specifically remembered for this scene. And it's the scene at the end that I believe it's this big final road showdown that we've titled it. I was glad that we took that risk and that everybody was down, and we did it, first of all, safely, as safe as we could. But you're right. It's about also taking advantage of like your privileges, right? I'm like, I know as a up and coming brown creator, 19 years old, I'm in this nice pocket where I'm fresh out of high school. I'm hungry. People respond to that. And I can make this movie at this age, because probably when I'm older, I probably won't have the balls to. I probably won't. I'm going to get more scared, or it's going to be like, I'm going to think more harder about it, or try to like make it too deep. I'm like, I'm going to make it the way I want to now. And let's hope that I can carry it with me from beyond. And it's a success in that way, because yeah, we finished it. We got that sick ass headline. We premiered a dope ass at the Chinese theater, which we never fucking would have ever expected. And like, yeah, it's for free on YouTube, because I'm like, that's what I made it for people that just are just home and just like, hey, there's a fucking free movie on YouTube. Let's just fucking pop it up and watch it. And it's for you. And we shot it here. And I'm like, and I want to keep up that tradition of making shit that gave me that same feeling of starting to see more things that were closer to me in LA than I had ever seen before. A movie that came out a while, like in 2012. It's not a great movie. It's good, but it's called A Better Life. And that was they filmed something in Bell Gardens. They filmed this really important scene in Bell Gardens at this club called Premiere. And I was in my Spanish class, 2014, when I saw that movie. And I remember I was like, yo, that's across the bridge. I've grown up seeing that fucking place, and now it's in a movie. I was just like, I was thinking about it all day. I was like, whoa, we're finally in movies now? Like, oh shit. I'm like, that's exciting. And that feeling it gave me, I was like, that's the same fucking feeling I want to give to everybody else. And that everybody else should give to any viewer that's from this area, from any other fucking low-income area. You know, it's just nice to be seen and be heard. That's why I like being on this show too, because it's like, it's another form of being seen, being heard by another fellow creative and someone that I really respect in this industry right now, that's just doing it for the pure love of it, but also because you recognize there's value in uplifting others and not having an ego about like, oh, but I don't want someone to outshine me. I feel like it's everybody's fucking thing. Like, I have that too, low key. You know, you don't want someone to outshine you, but at the end of the day, it's like, we all got to come up together. You got to think bigger than that. We're humans. We're so weak. When you look at us from so high up, I was looking at drone footage, and like, as humans, we are so fucking little, dude. We're so insignificant, but we hold so much in this, right? But we have to remember we are this, you know? So like, even though we want to be like, oh, I'm so great, I'm fucking this, like, you're this, bro. You're always going to be an ant. You're tiny. You're this. Recognize that and think about the greater good in moments where you have the where you can have an opportunity to uplift someone. So that's why I'm really grateful for shows like this too, dude.
Yeah, and again, the film is Bad Labor. It's free on YouTube. Can you describe the premise for people?
Yeah, it's about a day laborer that gets picked up by a hitman who has a job inquiry for him, and it pays $10,000. I haven't done that in a while. I haven't done that log line in a while, but yes.
And it's really good. Again, it did remind me of like that Robert Rodriguez. Like, it's got that grit to it too, you know. And the soundtrack's amazing.
Thank you. My brother did that. 17. He was 17 years old when he scored that whole movie. So like, it was just a bunch of, yeah, I love that you say young and hungry, because at the end of the day, that's mostly what I want to be read in that movie. Yeah, a bunch of kids made this movie. You know, like, I wanted it to have the story anyway. I wanted the story to have the sophistication of like after you finish watching, you're like, okay, it's rough and shit. It's definitely like gritty, but maybe it feels like a 30-year-old might have made this, you know, and then you just fucking see these like 19-year-olds like, nope, it was us. Haha, we fooled you. That's why we casted older people, you know. We didn't want to cast too young people, so it didn't seem like that young of a production. So like, let's just cast a bunch of older people, because like, there's no way people are gonna like fucking lose their minds when they see a bunch of like these 30-year-olds or like 40-year-olds in this movie. And it's like, and it was directed by 19-year-old me, you know. There were a lot of times though too where even that age difference like kind of was a thing on set, but it was like a good challenge, you know?
So, you know, you talk about like keeping the momentum, the ball rolling. So like, what'd you do next?
So after that, it was mostly editing. We edited that for a year. In 2018, when we got the okay and that we were approved for La Leaf to be a selection, I had already finished shooting Instant Crush for Me Too. Now that one was cool because, again, we're talking about privilege and transparency. I'll fucking say it, dude. I was pampered, like, as best as I could be. And I think I deserved it. I was going through a really hard time. But that felt like a big company like Me Too was like, wow, you made a cool movie, dude. Here's a set. for something you want to make. It was just like life giving me a like, here you go, like here you caught a break, here you go, have this. And it was like, that was the most comfortable I could just be walking around a set. Again, it was now like, instead of the cast just being older people, it's everybody's older people, and little me, 21-year-old me now is the director, you know. And I learned from stories of listening to like Steven Spielberg when he started young, or even Edgar Wright, how people would be like, whose dick did this kid suck to get here, you know, or whatever. And I was like, okay, they all had different approaches to how they handled their sets. And for mine, it was just like, I'm just going to embrace that I am a kid and we're just fucking out here making shit. And I think everybody can find their groove as filmmakers, especially when you get into a, don't feel sad right now if like, especially because we all make things at pretty low scale because we're all independent, low budget. So it might get discouraging if we don't make a day, right? If you like, you got missing scenes, we got to push, you know, you're like, I'm such a fucking failure. Like, I'm not a real director. It's like, recognize how many people are there with you, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, okay, like people with hundreds of people on set still don't make their day, you know, like it's part of the experience. And once I learned that set was a good experience for me to have because everything was so taken care of, things still went wrong. And I was like, ooh, okay, so now I understand that we're not just fucking dumb idiot kids that don't know what we're doing or don't know how to schedule. Sometimes shit just goes too long or like the day fucking escapes you, you know? You learn with things as it go, but after that I did Instant Crush, and then most recently just put together an album and it's called Yung Papi.
And, you know, Instant Crush, I think it's on YouTube, Instagram TV, like people can check it out. Totally, highly recommend it.
Thank you.
So let's talk about like Yung Papi, which I listened to a lot of stuff. A lot of people put out their albums. I am like low key, like playing on repeat.
Hell yeah, dude. Thank you. Me too. Low key. I don't like telling people that. I'm like, I know it's whack to listen to your own shit like that, but I love the music. And I've come to terms with that because I'm like, I like these songs, you know?
Yeah. And like talk about the like style of it, because I think it's like it well represents who you are and your identity. I think it's like a mishmash of like different cultures and styles and genres. So like talk about like why you wanted to and how did you got there.
You're saying all the right things, Ruben. I'm like, I think I'm going to make you my official Q&A person from now because you notice all the right shit. Yeah, I mean, like the album's a celebration of pop music in my way, things that I like in certain pop eras and genres, mainly influenced by like the Strokes, the Beatles, and the Beach Boys, I would say. A little bit of Kanye in there, but I just wanted to make an album of songs that I've always wanted to hear. My brother has been making music for a very long time, and he'll send me early demos, and I'll send him ideas. And sometimes some will go through, some won't. I've even written one song with him before, or we've written 2 songs actually. We've written 2 songs together, one on his album, and then the ending song for Bad Labor. We wrote that song together.
That's a vibe.
Right? Thank you, bro. Yeah, so I love making music, and so I just knew for this one, I'm like, let me just do one that's like super Chris Carmona, just all the shit that I like, just bunched into one. I'm gonna learn how to make these songs from scratch, and let's just see where they go. And that was kind of how it came out. It took like a year, maybe a year and a half to complete, to like start recording and to finish. In between that, I went to Italy, had that whole experience. I lived my life there, and I feel like that was a really big turning point for me, going to Italy with my friends, my filmmaking friends that I made the movie with. It was just like a big moment. It was a lot of heartbreaking things happened to me. I learned a lot of things over there about myself, and just like being out of the country was just such a weird experience. And I just try to channel all those feelings into the album, because to me, I'm like, Yung Papi, to me, what that name means to me can mean whatever it means to whoever, but at least at the time was like, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm just like, it was me leaving a bubble in my life of a circle of friends that are in a relationship too. And, once that bubble's popped, you're like, oh shit, the real world's big place, like I don't have these old friends anymore. I have to meet new people. I got to fucking take chances on people that maybe sus, sketch or not, or, maybe they don't look like their picture, or whatever, like shit like that. You're like, that's all being part of Yung Papi, like the disappointments, the fucking frustrations, the wins, the losses, the bragging, and then the being vulnerable, like, actually, I'm kind of fucking whack a little bit, It's all that. It's like learning to just be like, I'm chilling, And a big part of why I got to be so chillin' was because of the friends I made, my homies Angel, Justin, and honestly, because I'm a fucking stoner now. I think that's a big part of why I get to be chill. And that album is very highly part in thanks to weed. I think we got to shout out like weed for the album, really.
I want to talk about the Us podcast. I'm telling you, when I say I'm a fan, I'm a fan. Like
I believe you. Thank you.
Well, again, it's like, I think what really like impresses me about you is like, you're really young. You're like just a brown kid from SELA. Like, you have like that tenacity, that like need to hustle and grind. And a lot of people spend their early 20s not doing that. They spend it doubting it themselves the whole time and waiting for something else to come along that's going to do it for them. And I think you're like the opposite of that. And I think we have to like reward that too, because it's like,
thank you, man.
I don't want you to get an ego or anything. I know that might be a trigger, but it's like, yeah, who are the people that are coming up and making like cool shit, and like how do we all help them like push along and like make the next thing?
And thank you, bro. And listen, like you use the word waiting, which is good, because waiting, like once I hear that word, I like squint. I'm just like, like I hate that word because you know why? Because I was ready to wait like everybody else. I was ready to. And very early on, I decided, once I started doing more film sets and when I was 18 and stuff, I was like, I don't really need to wait. I'm like, I'm doing fucking sketches, like pretty good quality. I was like, what's stopping me from doing like an hour-long sketch movie? I was like, we have the tools for it. I'm like, I don't see why we couldn't do a movie for like less than what needed to be done back then. And I get that from my dad, that like, I'm not going to wait on anybody. I'm just going to fucking do it the way I want. And there's good and bad to that, because also I'm an impatient person. You know, to fucking, on the flip of that, I'm a very impatient person. So like, if I'm not getting things right now, I'm just like, you know, like I'm trying to fucking make things go faster. But then a big part of that life experience is also learning how to balance that. Like, yes, it's a good superpower I have that I call it a superpower, that I'm always just like, this is the next thing, this is the next thing, this is the next thing. I've always been like that in my head. I've always had these projects lined up. Now as an adult and with friends that I can make it happen, I'm just like, this is it next, this is the next thing, this is the next thing on our lineup. But also too, like, I'm just like everybody else. I get lazy. You know, I lay down a lot. I slept a lot through my fucking 19th year of life and in my 20th year of life, you know? It's all about learning. It's all about finding your way. And I know at the end of the day, see, I used to have a bigger ego when I had less, right? When I did less. And I needed that because I didn't have shit, right? So I'm like, I knew my own, I knew how far my shit can go, how I could take it, but up until I can actually make it visible, it was all in here. It was like, you can't really show it to people, you know? So the more you get comfortable with creating something that you see and putting it out and being like, well, regardless of how people take it, this is exactly what I wanted to put out. There's something really magical. And I found that in music, especially with how fast you can create something that was just in here. And once you like lay it down, you're like, wow, this is magic. And you got to see, I think, you got to see life in a way that makes you happy. Some people are like create better when they're sad. So if you want to be melancholy, you can, you know, reflect on stuff and then hone that, because that's just what I try to do every day. It's like, I'm making a lot of stuff too, but I'm also being mad lazy. I'm smoking a lot. I'm just fucking like thinking, I'm pondering. I'm like, I'm procrastinating too. Work with that. Be okay with that. You know, I just dropped this album. And I was going to spearhead another EP because I just started getting a bunch of ideas for new songs. And I was going to drop in November. I'm like, okay, I have this whole month to work on this now. And I was like rushing it. And it just didn't feel right. It was like, I kind of want to work on these songs now, you know? You got to trust that gut feeling, because I think now more than ever, we're learning that gut feeling isn't just some random thing that happens in our stomach. It's intuition. It's something that we got to trust. And when you are comfortable taking your time with shit, you know, I make things fast because that's my speed. I'm a very intense guy. I'm like, I'm a guy that's got the cocaine energy that doesn't do cocaine, you know? It's like, that's me. That's who I am. You find your speed, you'll create consistent. It doesn't even have to be at the same pace as me, but you'll find yourself putting in, you know, even if it's like a little bit of pages in a day or one page, a little bit of a description, you're always adding, you're always writing every day. You can put it to paper. It's just about like making yourself feel good first and foremost, because we all need to be in a good space to just like create, to feel comfortable. Like right now, I feel comfortable spilling my heart out just because like the vibe is chill. There's no, I don't feel any judgment. I don't feel like you're like, fuck does this guy know, you know? And I bet you treat everyone that way, which is why it's important. We should all treat people with that. Like, I'm learning that too. I'm a very judgmental person, or I was, you know, I'm trying to like lose those stigmas, and because I'm like, nobody judges me like that. And then I get mad when people do. I really hate them when they do. Why? Because you're gonna hate me, I'm gonna be famous, fuck you, you know? It doesn't work that way. It's human. It's about being a human.
Sort of leading us into that is the Us podcast, where it's like, how would you describe like the Us podcast to people who haven't heard it before?
So the Us podcast is just a show hosted by two brown kids from SELA, and we're directors. And basically what I like to pitch it is, I'm like, just think about like if you could watch Quentin and Robert have like a whole show before they became Quentin and Robert. That was what got us stoked about it, because we're like, we're going to be someone's favorite director someday. Like, whether or not we become one of the greats, that's left to history. I don't really care about that anymore. I'm like, but we will be somebody's favorite directors or creatives at the very least. And while I always thought it was cringy to like aim to inspire people, because it's like, you're like taking the focus on what you should be focusing on, which is the work. And so we're like, we do this shit all the time. We're dope people. We're a voice that isn't in the landscape currently at the moment. You know, we just want to be brown people that talk to other brown creatives and just like what it's like coming up. Because we thought, wouldn't it be cool to get to know what every person or creative that you liked, what they sounded like, what place they were in their heads, or even popularity wise, like in 2018, you know, with these directors. It's just like a cool crossing of worlds. Like right now it doesn't have too much value because we're still all coming up, but dude, I guarantee you like 5 years from now, people are going to be rushing back to those shows, because we've talked to Omar Apollo, Young Latita, Katsuoso, lots of cool people, even a couple of bad people, you know, but history is like that, you know, like it's weird, but I love the show because it's funny. It's just us being us and brash, and we talk about movies, specifically brown representation in movies. I know it's a big word people love, you know. I'm okay with the word representation. I understand what it means, but I feel like people can get too caught up in that. But that's the show.
And, you know, hot takes.
Hot takes galore.
I've heard of movies that you guys have like done episodes on movies I've never heard of, and sort of making fun of them a little bit. And, you know, it's great to expand Latinx cinema.
Right.
You've done reviews on movies that I really didn't want to see, and I'm glad y'all could just tell me exactly what happened.
Hell yeah, bro.
So leading into that, you know, I want to know what, like, because I see y'all always being like Holly Foos, Nuevo Hollywood. Like, what is all that?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Nuevo Hollywood. Yeah, it's just Angel. So that's me and my podcast host, Angel. But it's also a friend of ours named Sarah Neal, who's an awesome writer and producer. She helped us put together our whole Border Bash event that the podcast hosted in Bell last year in December. It was a big fundraiser we did for Border Angels. And it's another awesome director, lady friend of mine, my girlfriend, Jasmine Aguilar. Her short, The Letter, recently just got into HBO. So you can find it, HBO, The Letter. It's like 10, 12 minutes. Really good, really, really beautiful movie. So it's us four. And Angel and I, again, SELA obviously is overlooked, but also SELA people are overlooked. And I feel like SELA creatives too, like we just felt like, I think a lot of times when you're in a big group of people, you can feel left out because specific foods might get prioritized or like kind of put more attention to over than others. I was very salty about that in the beginning, but after a while, you're just like, whatever, who gives a fuck? Because, you know, like at the end of the day, we're all going to win. We all should win at the end of the day. That's what it should be about. As long as you hold that in your heart, you're always going to win. I saw a good tweet that's like, as long as you're a good person, you're always going to win in the end. Like, even if you get screwed now, you're just always going to win in the end if you're coming from a good place. So I like to approach it with that. But sometimes you can feel left out. So Angel and I were like, okay, well, if people have their own little cliques, let's have ours, you know, like, because we're definitely not even like, yes, we're making brown movies, Latino movies, LatinX movies, just kidding, Latinx. But even though we're making those kind of movies, we're not doing it in the same way everybody else might classify a Latino movie. And it's a very extra way of being like, ooh, we're a little cooler, you know, because like we like to kind of own that. But we just figure like, dude, like if we're not going to be included in these lists, articles like artists to watch 30 before 30, like that's like, then who cares? We'll have our own clique. And as long as we recognize each other, as long as we're uplifting each other, making sure our shit's tight, different, unique, something we haven't seen before, then we're good. So it's just us keeping each other in check. Like you mentioned the movie reviews you did, we stated in those that like we want to start building a culture. Like it's going to start within us, right? Because we can't be like, okay, me and Angel and these and Sarah and Jasmine, we're all gonna like we're the bar, like that's very arrogant to even say. So within ourselves, we're like, okay, to each other, we are the people we have to keep challenging. And if it should grow, if it should not, if people look at it and want to want to do something similar, like I highly encourage they should, because it would just go to show how many more shades, like it's already like getting deeper into like there's different Latinos, but then there's different Latino vibes, styles, stories, perspectives, queer, fucking, straight, or like all that shit. There's so much. It's so many colors that we have to explore. Start singling out what canvas you are. So we're Novo Hollywood. We're taking things from Hollywood movies that we love, from non-Hollywood movies, but just generally movies that we love, and making it our own and new, adding that new brown vibe level. That's how I would describe why we call ourselves that. And it's good for us because we meet every month. We meet monthly, check it and with each other on the projects we're working on. And yeah, we just got a lot of cool shit in the mix.
And sort of leading from that, it's like, what is, like, as a writer, like what are like the genres, the stories that you're attracted to? What are the themes that you feel like you're constantly like writing and are part of your work?
So I've written four feature scripts in my lifetime, and I look at all my ideas and I realize a big theme in my life is friendship. In Bad Labor, it's about a friendship that you wouldn't expect, and kind of this like weird, awkward pairing of these people, but they kind of form a friendship at the end, right before like shit goes really crazy. It's like, but it's that, I realize I am interested in like either people that you wouldn't expect to be together in an awkward situation, what can become of that, or just friendship. And like this next movie I'm doing, These Foos, is going to be just about friends, about just one night out with a bunch of friends who haven't seen each other in a while, and communication and shit like that. I'm really interested in that for this first act of my career, because I think there's something important in saying, I guess that's a friendship movies, or just movies about friendship, is just a cool way to kind of allow the audience to be like, hey, you're one of us, come join us along for this ride. You feel like you're just in that passenger seat with them, like on whatever journey, whatever conversations might ensue. And so as a viewer, I realize I'm into shit like that, movies that like I just feel cool or comfortable with the characters, or I want to be like them, or I love the music, the vibe, so for the most part, I just like doing cool movies about characters that happen to be brown, have very specific problems outside of just their race, like maybe their race has like a little bit to do with it, maybe, but it's that vibe, like maybe, but overall, they're just dealing with a broken heart, or they're dealing with fucking, not being listened to by their boyfriend or whatever,
I'm curious of like, where did the writing come in for you? Like when, like, did you know like writing was something that like you were good at, something you wanted to pursue? Like,
I feel like I've been always, I didn't know how to write scripts as a kid, so I would just like look up the format online and like, okay, I'll kind of copy that on Word docs, just have everything be in the middle. You just put it align it in the middle. So I used to write scripts like that, but it wasn't until after that film program, when I won that award, I was like, I'm technically an award-winning writer. And I was like, we're gonna go off technicality. I'm technically. So that class really forced me to share my writing with people more, like, because I didn't before. I would just verbalize a lot of my ideas. Like I would write it, but I'd be like, okay, we're gonna do this scene, and I just explain it verbally. But even as early as I was a kid, me and my brother Brandon, when we were bored and just in the car on a trip or something, I would literally talk his ear off, telling him whole movies, describing it like it off the dome, like off the top of my head. And I know he kind of hated that, but it was good practice for me, because I'm like, man, I used to time myself to, I'm like, all right, the hour begins now. So I'm like, all right, so this movie starts with blah, 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 blah. And sometimes he'd laugh, and it developed from that to then fucking writing it out so my cousins could read the lines or whatever. And then that film program, when I won that award, it just gave me the comfort to be like, okay, like this award is some kind of validation to me that my writing isn't shit. And like, because I got a quick course of like the flowery shit is meta necessary. Tell us what we need to know. Maybe add a little personality in the script every now and then, but just a blueprint. Just tell us what we need to know. You're not quitting yet. You know, you don't got to do all that flowery shit just yet. So it was good. And after that, I felt more comfortable in writing more simplistically and sharing it with people. Because I don't feel embarrassed about sharing my writing with people anymore.
And who are, I like to ask my guests, who are the people that who are the writers, the creators that they're inspired by? So this could be heroes, this could be peers, friends. It could also be people like you mentioned, you're like creeping on Instagram, they don't know who you are, but you're like rooting for them.
Yeah, obviously my Noble Hollywood gang, Sarah Neal, Jasmine Aguilar, Angel Salinas. I love those people. I think we're all on the same wave. We're on the same mindset. Steph O's a homie. She's awesome. I think Steph O's doing big stuff, and I like seeing people like her and her podcast co-hosts really dominate spaces in this industry because damn, dude. People that look like them just fucking would not give them the time of day anytime before now. You know what I mean, dog? Like they would have been somebody's assistant or something or whatever. You know, it's like they deserve to be fucking like leaders. People like also Francisco Cabrera, like he's from Florida. I don't know him too well. I haven't read much of his stuff, but I love his short film, Junior. Really good. And he's just someone else that it's like, dude, like there are so many different styles and flavors of people that like we all deserve to be the leaders we were all destined to be. Like no more of this like labor shit, like I should have been a fucking mechanic, I should have been driving trucks like my dad or like I should have been that guy. The world wanted me to be that guy, but that's what makes us so special. Each brown person so special. Like think about the job, the lame labor job you were supposed to have had we not been in an advanced time as now. Like we are those plumbers, we are those mechanics, but now we have the intellectual capacity and we have the skill to make dope art. Like that's crazy. We were meant to be one thing, but we fucking said, fuck you, system. I'm not gonna be that plumber. I'm not gonna be. Not that there's any shame in those jobs. Like I'm not gonna be those jobs that you expect me to be. Like when I was a PA, the last PA job I ever did, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna be on a set where people look at me like, oh yeah, you should be picking up our trash. I'd be like, fuck that. I'm running these sets.
And where can people find you? Where can they find all your stuff?
I'm on YouTube. You could just look up youtube.com/the Chris Carmona. If you literally want to watch everything I've ever made, my movie's on there. Supplemental features also too. Like I do a little intro. That's fine. My series is up there. My album's up there. My sketches from when I was like 19 are up there as well. My podcast is there too. So yeah, and you can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the Chris Carmona.
The last question I have is I ask my guests to help title the episode.
Sure.
So the prompt is a blank Latinx writer. So in that blank, you can put more than one word. You can mix them all up around. Just whatever rings true to you, your writing, this conversation. I use it as a way to build community. So when people see the title, they're like, oh, this guy's like me. Like I should listen to this.
What if it was called a dope ass SELA Latinx writer?
I love that.
Sick.
And I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was such a fun conversation.
Ruben, I had the best time, man. Thank you very much. Now, I've never gotten really to talk about like my life in this kind of a calmed format before. In our show, we're always joking around.